Hello and welcome. Well, parents have long found the task of what to pack in children's lunchboxes just a little daunting. What's healthy, what isn't, what will be eaten and what won't. And the concerns, of course, when your child comes home from school and their lunchbox is still full, and it's every parent's worst nightmare. Let's face it, life is busy and stressful enough, especially with everything that we're living through at the moment. So we're here today to help by sharing expert information that is aimed to help support busy parents. And to help provide this support along with nourishing lunchbox options, we welcome back Siobhan Boyle, CEO of Jamie Oliver's Ministry of Food, who Kiddipedia is honoured to be in partnership with. Thank you for joining us and welcome back. How are you doing?
Rachel, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm really excited to be chatting with you here in Melbourne, and we've sort of gone into stage 4, which is for anyone in Victoria knows it's a bit of a challenging time at the moment. Here in Australia, as we know, we've got a huge disparity between our states and territories as to who has children back in the classroom and who has children back into remote and distant learning. So I guess either way, even if parents, with the lunchbox debate, even if they are home in isolation, they still have to prepare their children's lunches every day. I guess throughout this COVID period, we've spoken with so many experts who have all recommended that when home in isolation, that providing children with structure in their day is vitally important. I'd love to know initially, do you think that, even for the people home in isolation at the moment, preparing a homemade version of a lunchbox and could maybe a good idea for families at the moment?
Yeah, I think this is a really good idea. As you said, it gives parents that structure in the day. It also gives kids that structure in the day. I mean, we all like a little bit of routine, and especially now where the world has been flipped upside down and all of our routines have been sort of taken a little bit off course. At least this way, it's putting a little bit of control back. Parents can kind of put together their lunchboxes in the morning. It feels like their children can then take charge of their snacks and their lunches, and they know that their kids aren't going to be sort of reaching sort of for unhealthy treats and pestering them all day. So I think it's a really positive thing to do, and actually, something also that the kids can get involved with too, get them involved in that process. And so, hopefully they'll consume what they've put in their lunch boxes, because they won't have children around them saying, "Oh, I don't like the look of that." So hopefully they'll be sort of more likely to consume, what they've chosen for the day.
And it's bringing some, I guess, sense of normality back to something that a situation that is anything but normal at the moment.
Oh, gosh, absolutely. I know. Who knows what normal is? I mean, they're describing this as the new normal.
This is the new
normal.
I know. Oh, now we published your article, Lunchboxes with Purpose. Now, for someone who hasn't yet read the article, can you please tell us what it's about and just tell us what inspired you to write it?
So the importance of what you put in your kids' lunch boxes is more than just food. I'm not sure whether you're all aware, but there are some pretty scary statistics out there when it comes to children's health. We know that 27% of Australian children are overweight or obese. And this is the first generation of children that are not expected to outlive their parents. So that's some pretty scary facts to swallow. However, the good news is making your children's lunch boxes, it means that you are actually in total control over what you're feeding your children. So you have a chance to influence how they learn through the day, how they behave through the day, and also you're also influencing their futures as well, because we know what we feed our children will also have an impact on their mental health outcomes in adult life. So it's not just the now and nourishing their bodies, but it's nourishing their minds for the future too. So it's so important. And starting with something as simple as a lunchbox is a really great way of doing this.
Well said. Well said. And as you mentioned, the article does provide some confronting stats and facts. And, like you said, whilst we're not here to lecture and preach, let's face it, everyone's going through a hard enough time as it is at the moment. We do really need to address these important issues so that then they won't be heightened. And, I guess during the pandemic, for example, kids that are snacking on junk food and those types of things as well, and obesity levels increasing. these are really important issues that we don't want to just sweep under the carpet at the moment. And at the moment, we need to ensure that are being addressed during the pandemic, so things post-pandemic life aren't necessarily going to be sort of worse off than where they already are. So just initially, I just wanted to address some of these sort of confronting stats, and I'd love for you to share some of them that you feel parents should be aware of just initially.
So as I mentioned, with the 27% of kids
Yep.
in Australia being overweight or obese, which is pretty scary in itself. So that's over a quarter of children.
Incredible.
And unfortunately, children don't have control over their diets. So this is a parent's and adult responsibility. So we are completely responsible for them until they leave us. So it's so important getting kids eating the right foods. We know that 84.8% of children aged 12 to 17 fail to consume 4 serves of vegetables per day. So, which is quite scary as well. So it's not just the obesity and being overweight that's an issue. We know that kids aren't consuming the recommended daily amounts of fruit and vegetables too. So it's also that the effects of being overweight isn't just the negative effects on the body, it's the negative effects they can have with other children as well. So children who are overweight are more likely to be bullied too. So no one wants their child to go through that. So it's not just the mental health, it's not just the effects on their bodies, it's that sort of holistic approach to at school as well, that kids can be quite cruel. We want to enable our children to have the best possible outcomes, and so by making sure we're feeding them the right foods, putting the right ingredients in their lunch boxes, and keeping them aware of what they're eating as well, we're going to hopefully sort of give them the best possible chances within school and then for their futures too.
Absolutely. And we've got all of that information in the article, which will have the link in the show notes. But the next point is it's not all bad news. What are some of the good news that you can maybe share with us?
Well, the good news is that diet-related disease are both reversible and preventable. And we
Absolutely.
know that kids who learn to cook have better diets and are more aware of the importance of making healthier choices. So getting kids in the kitchen too. So as I mentioned at the beginning, getting kids to help you putting together their lunch boxes, that will sort of enable them to make better choices, and they're more aware of why they're doing that. And so if that's instilled from a young age, those good habits become the norm. So that's a really important thing to do. But that's another piece of good news, because as I said, we can reverse this scary trend, and we know that we get the kids involved in the kitchen, they're more likely to make those choices.
Yes.
And we know as well that kids who are eating healthier lunches are performing better at school. They're less likely to take days off. They're more motivated. They have better behavior. And we know that they are going to have an increased enthusiasm towards learning. So these are all really positive outcomes of transforming your children's lunch boxes. We also know that if you get kids involved right at the beginning of a food cycle and get them growing food too, they're actually much more likely to eat those ingredients too. So there's lots of real positives to come out of this. It's not all doom and gloom. In all honesty, if you prioritize your children's health, then you're going to prioritize what you're putting in their lunch boxes, because it then becomes a priority.
Yes.
So we can all make that time. And some small positive changes. We're not saying you need to totally reinvent the wheel, but
Yes.
some really small positive changes, making sure you're always including fruits and vegetables, whole grains, give them water to drink instead of sugary milk drinks or poppers or those other sort of fruit juice drinks. You can really sort of make some positive shifts, and I think you'll notice those changes in your children.
Mm-hmm. And as you said, eating habits are set in the first few years of life, and when we encourage good, healthy food, habits, children will take those habits into their adult life. I'd love to know also, what are your top ingredients and ingredient suggestions for boosting mental health? Because you've mentioned that a couple of times, which is vitally important, that the quality of the food is going to affect their learning and their mental health. So is there anything in particular that you think from an ingredient perspective, what suggestions do you have for boosting mental health then?
So we know that fruit, vegetables, and whole grains improve anxiety in children and adults too. So this doesn't need to be just the rules for kids. For boosting their mood, cottage cheese and air pop popcorn. So who doesn't love popcorn? And popcorn is a great little snack. You can do that at home. Easy to do.
I could eat popcorn every day and be fine. Yep.
Totally. But that's good for boosting your mood. We know that tuna, so like making a nice tuna sushi roll or something, or even, if you want to buy a sort of brown rice tuna sushi roll, that's great for concentration. So that's a total win too. If you're feeling irritable or unsettled, celery is really calming. So nice crunchy celery sticks, very calming for you. And bananas and walnuts are very good for depression. Now, walnuts may be a little controversial because of the nuts and school issue, but bananas are great for lunchboxes because you don't need to wrap them. So good for the whole naked food movement too. And, and bananas are great energy boosters, and they're a boost for depression. So total win all round. So some really good ingredients there.
Anxieties, fruit, vegetables, whole grains. Mood boosters can be the cottage cheese and air popped popcorn. Concentration is the omega-3s with tuna. And when they're feeling unsettled is quinoa and celery, as you just mentioned. And depression is walnuts. And if they've got a nut allergy, of course, you've just got bananas as well for depression, and or just sort of mood enhancing overall. In saying that, what are your top sort of lunchbox tips you'd like to be able to share with us today?
So as I just mentioned as well, when you are sort of packing a lunchbox, always offer water. So it's the most healthiest and most thirst quenching option available. So always put water into your lunchboxes, especially in a climate. I know we're in winter at the moment, but winter will soon be over. And so, making sure that your little people are well hydrated is a really key thing. Planning ahead. So making and freezing portions so that it's not laborious, because everyone is time poor, and so making ahead frittatas, savory muffins, zucchini slices, they're great to sort of make and freeze in little portions ready to pull out to pop into the lunch boxes. A great way of including those whole grains, which, as I said before, is really good for anxiety. Is switching to wholemeal bread instead, or if you're making a wrap, using a wholemeal wrap. So it's those small little changes which can really sort of make all of that difference.
Yes. Great advice.
And then making sure that snacks that you're packing are good, healthy snacks too. So it's not. You don't need to sort of be reinventing and creating sort of healthy versions of processed food. Having lovely crudités and cherry tomatoes, cubes of really delicious cheese, some frozen yogurt, even some plain baked pretzels are really good options. And fruits like strawberries are great for snacking on too. So it's kind of making sure that, they've got a really interesting variety of food. They've got a rainbow of food, of ingredients in their lunchbox, because you eat with your eyes, don't you? You don't want your lunchbox to look sad. And we're very lucky now. We didn't have these when we were kids, but they have all these amazing bento boxes.
I was going to ask you what your thoughts are on bento boxes. Yes.
They're incredible. And they're so good. And we actually sort of, we work with a company called Stuck on You, and we actually do and which is fantastic. And they produce these wonderful boxes, which are so kid friendly. And they've got all the little sections that you can put your fruits and your protein and everything in. And so they're pre-designed. It means that things don't get mushed together. And they pop them in their little bags with a cool box, and it keeps everything really lovely and fresh until they're ready to eat. So I think they're brilliant. So kids today are really lucky. They've got all of these things in their favor. And
oh, to be a kid again.
Exactly. Oh God, I know. If only.
I wanted to ask your opinion, what should parents do if their children really dictate what they want in their lunch boxes, and especially if they're unhealthy options? As an example, do you have any advice for a parent that maybe, for example, is being sort of you know, like for example, they are providing some healthy options and the kids aren't necessarily liking and or wanting them. So the child is maybe dictating a little bit what I want and I know I will eat this type of thing. I don't know.
There's always a bit of pester power from kids, and let's be honest, you know, sort of, children will always say, "I don't like this, I don't like this." But the good news is that you can change their habits. So it's not
Yes.
saying change it all overnight, because, like with anything, if you do that, people won't. People will resist change. Whereas if you start to make small changes, you know, if they're used to having lots of unhealthy snacks in their lunch boxes, switch one for something homemade instead. And so, you know, you're giving them those options, and then that becomes the norm. And then, you know, there's nothing wrong with putting a delicious home baked treat in there. Anything home baked is always going to be better than shop bought, because you've got total control over the ingredients you're using. So it's not saying you can't have treaty ingredients in there, like a home baked
The
slice or a
balance.
bit of, yeah. But it's just, if you've made it yourself, then at least you know what's gone into it. So and it is sort of switching those things, going, actually, this week I'm going to bake this, and that's going to be their treat of the
Well,
week.
that's what I wanted
And
to ask you about variety. You know, it does make food interesting, and making, I guess, kids with sandwiches as an example, eating the same sandwich every day, but maybe just changing the snack food may end up that kids sort of love their snacks and thinking that the sandwich is a chore. So I wanted to know from your perspective, how often should parents shake up the traditional menu offering with new selections? I mean, do you think that they should just stick to the tried and true options that they know the kids are going to eat and they're going to come home and their lunchbox is going to be sort of empty, and or offer the same types of things every day? Just as a general question, like, what do you think?
I think it's good to mix it up. You'll know the ingredients that your kids will like, but also it's good to kind of, you know, display things in different ways, because you do eat with your eyes. So, you know, and I guess as a parent, it's a bit boring if you're always making the same thing, if you're always making the same sandwiches every day,
As well, for the
or
parent, of
sushi.
course. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I think having that variety is good, and, you know, mixing it up, because we all like to eat variety in our diet. And, you know, sometimes their taste buds develop. So something they may not have liked so much, and they then,
The
as you know,
palate changes.
exactly. And so a year later, they'll be like, "Oh, that's wonderful." So I think sort of giving a bit of variety, but also you don't want to become disheartened as a parent to be putting stuff in your children's lunch boxes, and then to keep coming home full, because, you know, that's going to be quite demoralizing. And also, people don't want to waste money by seeing food going to waste as well. So
As well.
there is that fine balance of, you know, what's going to work for your family, but, you know, keeping in mind fresh is best, if you're homemade is best, and eating that rainbow. So making sure there's always a beautiful array of colors of fruits and vegetables in there.
So I mean, in saying that, so what foods should a parent always aim to include in their child's lunch boxes then?
So in terms of what should be in a lunchbox, I would always include fruits. Make sure there's fruits and vegetables.
Yep.
There's whole grains. There's dairy.
Yep.
Some form of protein, nice healthy protein in there, whether that's in the form of tuna or some chicken in your
Yep.
sandwich, and then a healthy snack as well. So, you know, and those are kind of some good guidelines. So if you can tick all of those off your list, you're kind of like, you're off to
getting
a good
there.
start. Yes,
Well,
exactly.
talking about the snacks, I mean, supermarket shelves are filled with lots of packets of easy lunchbox treats, and they sort of masquerade, I guess, healthy food in a lot of instances. The problem is most are loaded with sugar, salt, fat, and often sort of offer very little nutritional value. I'd love to know from your perspective, do you think all packaged snacks are actually bad for children, as a general term
No,
question?
not all packaged snacks are bad. My advice would be to always read the label.
Yes.
Food labels can't lie. So always look at the list of ingredients on the back of a packet first.
Yeah.
And if it's full of a list of things that you probably don't recognize, or it's a list as long as your arm, you probably don't want to be giving that to your kids.
Yeah.
Um,
Of
the
course.
health star, they do have the health star rating on the front of snacks nowadays, and you know, that can be a little confusing as well. I mean, it's a system that was designed, you know, to make this whole process easier, because we all know that sometimes we need to sort of reach for something that is convenient, and of course you want to be making those best possible options and selections when you're doing that. So, you know, but the thing with a health star rating is you're comparing like for like. So if, for example, you picked up a muesli bar, now muesli bar is one of those things which everyone I think of as healthy.
Yes,
But
that's full of sugar.
they're laden with sugar, and
Yeah.
actually you're better off making something homemade and delicious than popping a muesli bar into your lunch boxes. But you know, if you did want to go down that route, you would compare like for like, and it compares, you know, in you know, the levels of sugar and salt and ingredients, and so it has a different star rating, so you can compare in category for a muesli bar. But I'm trying to sort of stick to sort of homemade options, sort of you know, unsalted pretzels, unsalted popcorn, you know, ready. Yeah, and so, you know, those sort of options are far better than actually kind of reaching for, you know, the packet snack options.
And, you know, in saying that, I mean, especially for the kids that are back at school at the moment, back in the classroom, they're more interested in playtime, you know, obviously being with their friends and running and playing sport than eating. So, I mean, grab and go stuff works well with kids that like to get out and play and be active. So I just wanted to know, just quickly too, what are your top selection for easy to prepare, like portable snacks? Anything in particular? You've mentioned some sort of sushi hand rolls with something like a hard-boiled egg or cheese sticks or something like that, or, you know, in the squeezy yogurts and those types of things as well.
Yeah, if you're going for a plain yogurt, that's a great, you know, because you can get those squeezy yogurts, which are good. And if you go for a plain one, which isn't sweetened, that's even better. And then, you know, those little bocconcini balls are great. Crudité, so just chopped up veggies, you know, in stick form, that's always good. And yeah, as you mentioned, cube cookies are really good. Baked pretzels, hard-boiled eggs. You've got, you know, if you are allowed nuts with cranberry, sometimes you get those little trail mixes. They're really good too. So it's depending on what you're allowed to sort of give your children in the school setting. And brown rice sushi, that's always a great option too. So there are lots of options out there, so you're not limited just because you're not reaching for a packet food
as well. And you mentioned earlier before also about homemade treats as well, and it's okay to have this sort of food sometimes as well. And I've read you know, in a lot of different sort of forums and whatnot, that allocating a bake day once a month is a great thing to do, and to freeze some of those healthy lunchbox treats as well. And it's also good for the family budget in a lot of instances now too, because families having to sort of to be more cautious sort of about these things. I'd love to know from your perspective, what sort of savoury things are good that I guess that a family could then pop into the freezer if they're going to sort of go ahead with that sort of baking sort of day once a month.
Well, I mean, the frittatas, and they're great to make in little muffin tins.
Yes.
So that's super easy. You know, it's like the cheap peach, isn't it? And you can put them in little baking paper, so they're nice and portable, and they freeze brilliantly. So you know, make it. And that's a great way of sneaking veggies in. Savory slices, like a zucchini slice, perfect. Even like little savory muffins are really good too. So we've got a gorgeous spinach and feta recipe for muffins, and they are super delicious. They're a bit of a winner, and you know, they're great for freezing. So anything like that, you know, which you can kind of make into little mini versions, and so all you got to do is pop them out the freezer and pop them into their lunch boxes, and you've got something good to go. And you know, you can do them in batches of 12 or 24, and you know, it's taking a lot of the heavy lifting out of the day for you, which is amazing.
A healthier option. What about sweet stuff then? You got fruit muffins, you've got pikelets, maybe some low sugar biscuits, high fiber ingredients, maybe fill them up. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong as well with making a beautiful banana bread, or you know, baking a beautiful slice as well. So you know, and even some homemade biscuits, because you have total control over what you're putting into those ingredients. So you know, as we know, a lot of the snacks that are out there and are available are energy dense. and they've got no nutritional value. So
Yeah.
and also they won't keep your children full, which is, you know, we all
Which
know,
is
like
what you
when kids are
want.
running around, you know, they're like, I want more, I want more, I want more. And so if you know that, you know, whatever you're feeding them, and even if whether that's the bulk of their lunch boxes or it's the snacks you're putting in, you know, if you're making those from scratch, and you know, even if it is a home baked cake, that's going to be way better than
Yes.
something you bought from
And
shops.
and not all parents really have the time to bake if they are sort of working from home now, all those types of things. So I'd love to know, do you have any other savory tips for healthy lunch boxes, like hummus, rice crackers, carrots and celery, the crudité that you're talking about before with carrots and celery sticks? You mentioned before about the sushi as well, those types of things. Is there anything else, or is this sort of what I guess some of the ideas that parents should be considering if they don't have time to go ahead and bake either savory or sweet stuff?
Yeah, totally. And you know, as you mentioned, sort of if you, I know you can get those little pots of like cheese and dip
Yeah,
and
yep,
crackers, but actually, you know, do that yourself. Get yourself some plain crackers without salt in them, and you know, cut them off some good cheese. And
yep,
you know, that's a great little snack. You know, sort of making a banana bread. You can always make your banana bread into muffins too.
yes,
Way better if you make it yourself. You know, mixing some Greek yogurt with frozen berries rather than
yep.
flavored yogurt, because if you're adding natural sweetness in, that's a total win. You've got, you know,
Actually,
little pancakes. We've got, oh,
pikelets.
pancakes are a great one. Jamie's got a great recipe, a 1-cup pancake recipe, and
Yeah.
it's 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of milk, and 1 egg. You whisk together, and they
Yep.
make perfect little pancakes. You can make little minis, which are wonderful. So yeah,
Awesome.
lots of options there.
And do you think every lunchbox should include protein, such as lean meat and cheese as well? What are your thoughts about that?
Absolutely, you need that in there, and that's an essential element to all lunch boxes, and it should be included because that's going to sort of help fuel their brains as well as their bodies too. Especially, you know, as we know, little bodies are very active, so you know, really important to getting that protein element in there too.
And the only other thing I just wanted to follow on with, I mean, afternoon snacks. If kids haven't eaten their lunch, they're going to come home famished and eat several packets of snack foods and junk food. And then, of course, they're going to struggle to finish their dinner, which is every parent's
Yeah.
nightmare as well. So I just wanted to know about your favorite afternoon snack picks. So, for example, you know, if there was maybe some fruit in their lunchbox that they didn't eat, maybe making that into a smoothie. But things like crackers with tomato and cheese can help as well. But I'd love to know, like, what are your afternoon snack sort of tips and advice for parents, like pre-dinner?
I mean, yeah, a smoothie is always a good option because that's a great way of kind of getting your getting your fruit in there.
Yep.
But you know, making beautiful fruit platters, you know, make it exciting, you know, and get the kids involved in that too. So if you make a fruit or vegetable platter, they're going to eat with their eyes, and they're going to think that, you know, it's something that they want to eat. So if it looks appealing and it's not all squished and it's presented beautifully, then you're much more likely to get them to eat it. As well as like with fruit skewers as well, you know, threading, it's amazing what putting the food on a stick does. Suddenly it takes it to a different dimension and kids love it. So
And
yeah,
if the
it's like,
cupboards are bare
wow,
as
I put
well.
strawberries and grapes onto a stick.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if the cupboards are bare at the moment too, maybe even just a bowl of high fiber cereal may even just do the trick as well, because getting to the supermarket can be a little bit of a chore down here in Melbourne at the moment. Now,
Yeah, of course.
really quickly, just tell us a little bit more about the Good Foundation, and I guess the online programs with cooking lessons, I guess that parents can be accessing sort of home whilst in isolation.
Yeah, and you know, it's so wonderful to have been able to come on to talk to you today about healthy lunch boxes. And you know, sort of one of the things we do know is that, you know, as a foundation, that, you know, it's not just telling people what they should be doing, it's equipping them with those skills so they are enabled to make those better choices for their families. So we have 2 wonderful programs that we proudly deliver in Australia.
Yep.
We have Jamie Oliver's Learn Your Fruit and Veg program, which is for the kids from 3 to 12, and then we have Jamie's Ministry of Food, which we deliver, which from 12 to 90 plus.
Yep.
And this is where we teach back to basic cooking skills, and
Yep.
we instill positive eating habits in a fun and engaging way so we can transform Australian communities.
Yep.
So we know it's the importance of upskilling rather than just telling people what to do, because we know telling people what to do doesn't always work. And, you know, people often know what to do. They just need to know how to do it. And, you know, they want to have the confidence in the kitchen. And that's what we do with our wonderful cooking programs.
So in saying that, we'll have all of the links through to I guess to all the different parts of your website where people can contact you and everything else. Otherwise, besides that, is there anything else, any other key messages that you'd like to share with anyone watching and listening today?
I think I just wanted to reiterate just how important it is getting your kids eating the right foods, and just, you know, the importance of what you put in their lunch boxes. I know it might seem like a chore, but it's not just fueling their mind and their bodies, it's also shaping them up for healthy, happier futures. So it's really, it is what we feed our kids now is so important. Getting them involved in the kitchen, really key too. And, you know, have some fun with this, because cooking and food is fun. It's not only delicious, but it should be fun, and it makes the world go round. So, you know, that's what we want to
Absolutely.
instill with our foundation and with our programs, and hopefully we'll continue to do that.
And your online program, as you said before, has got cooking lessons and a whole heap of different delicious and nutritious meals using Jamie Oliver's recipe. So we'll have all of those links in the show notes. Siobhan, an absolute pleasure to catch up and to chat to you about this this topic today. And looking forward to hopefully speaking with you in the next couple of weeks. And until then, take care and stay safe.
Wonderful, Rachel. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to chatting to you. I think we're chatting again next week, so we will have another catch up next week.
Can't wait.
Wonderful.
Take care, stay safe. See ya.
You too. Bye.